What's up everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Michael Chandler predicts Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Heading into UFC 291 this weekend, Michael Chandler holds the unique distinction of having shared the octagon with two men competing in the BMF title fight. Although he lost to both Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, the experience he gained while sharing the octagon with the pair gives him quite an interesting perspective when it comes to Saturday's main event clash. During a recent video for his YouTube channel, Chandler gave his breakdown on the fight, stating that Poirier hits incredibly hard, but Gaethje has a notable speed advantage in his eyes. While pointing to the recent evolution we've seen Gaethje undergo, the former Bellator MMA champion gave a pretty bold prediction for how he thinks things will play out.
My prediction is Justin Gaethje wins via decision. Justin Gaethje wins via decision, similar to what we saw against him and Tony Ferguson. Obviously, we know he finished Tony Ferguson late in the fight. I think it was the fifth round, but fourth or fifth round. I don't think he finishes Poirier, but I do think he beats him with output. I think he beats him by not being taken down. I think he beats him by those leg kicks.
Given that Gaethje put on an absolute masterclass against Tony Ferguson when the two fought, many fans have been quick to fire back at Chandler for the prediction. With fight night rapidly approaching, who do you think leaves Salt Lake City as the BMF? Drop your predictions in the comments section below. Sean Strickland says UFC doesn't want to book Adesanya title fight. Middleweight champion Israel Adesanya recently revealed in a video for his social media accounts that #1 contender Dricus du Plessis would be unable to compete at UFC 293 in September. As a result, Adesanya named Sean Strickland as the next man up at 185 pounds. Although the exchanges between Strickland and Adesanya back at the UFC 276 press conference entertained many, the fact of the matter remains that Strickland is the number 6 ranked fighter at 185 pounds. And although he's riding a 2-fight win streak, those wins come over fighters ranked outside of the top 10. As he revealed on Twitter, the UFC does not want he and Adesanya to headline the card, which, as he pointed out in a follow-up tweet, still doesn't have a main event. According to UFC 291 co-main event headliner Alex Pereira, if there's anyone who has a chance at beating Israel Adesanya at middleweight, it's Sean Strickland. Speaking to media members this week, he weighed in on the potential fight. Fighting Israel Adesanya is always a hard fight, but he showed that he can be beaten. Sean Strickland, he has a chance. Different game plans are hard, but if anyone has a chance against Adesanya, that'll be Sean Strickland. But it's still a hard fight. From the sounds of things, a fight between Strickland and Adesanya won't be taking place in September. The way bantamweight #1 contender Sugar Sean O'Malley sees things, there's only one reason why the UFC has not booked the fight. He spoke on a recent episode of the Bro Malley Show where he gave his theory on the situation.
I can only see one reason they don't want that fight, and it's just they're, risking Sean being the champ. I don't know. That's speculation. I'm not a hater. I think I would watch the fight. I think from a business perspective, maybe. That's why else wouldn't you want that fight? Yeah. Is he a champ? You want to see him keep winning?
With the UFC 293 card rapidly approaching in September, who do you think winds up headlining the card? Drop your predictions in the comment section down below. UFC fight updates. This week, 4 bouts were reportedly added to upcoming card. Without further ado, let's jump right in. First up on the calendar, we have a clash between Taylor Lapilus and Muin Gafurov, set for UFC Paris on September 2nd. The fight will see hometown favorite Lapilus look to make a successful return to the UFC after amassing a 7-1 record outside of the promotion since 2017. On the flip side, Gafurov will be looking to bounce back from a loss to John Castaneda in his UFC debut back in June. Next up, we have 2 fights added to a UFC Fight Night card on September 23rd, with featherweights Bryce Mitchell and Dan Ige colliding in a pivotal showdown, along with lightweights Rafael Fiziev and Mateusz Gamrot colliding in a thrilling clash of style. Last but certainly not least, we have a fight that's all but guaranteed to produce fireworks on the feet, with Edson Barboza and Sodiq Yusuff competing on October 14th at the UFC Apex. The bout will see Barboza look to pick up his 2nd straight victory after knocking out Billy Quarantillo back in April. On the flip side, Yusuff will be looking to make a successful return to the octagon amid a 2-fight win streak after almost nearly a year away. Israel Adesanya predicts Blachowicz versus Pereira. In a co-main event of UFC 291, former UFC champions Jan Blachowicz and Alex Pereira will compete in a highly anticipated showdown. Heading into the bout, the betting odds remain incredibly close, with the MMA community largely split in regards to who they think wins this fight. As the only man in the UFC to share the octagon with both men, The Last Stylebender gave his thoughts on the fight in the video for his YouTube channel, predicting a fast start for Pereira.
Because Alex will just let you know I'm the general. It's what he likes to do. He like to come in and try on the space. That leg kick, he's gonna throw that leg kick. because it's hard to read. He's gonna throw that leg kick. Jan is gonna take his time, patience, get as much reads as he can. But if Jan does what I think he's gonna do, he's gonna get caught with a left hook.
Although Blachowicz has stated that he will not shoot for a takedown right out of the gate, this fight could wind up playing out like a classic stylistic matchup. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love, and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Khabib running away from Tony Ferguson? Although Hall of Famer Khabib Nurmagomedov is content with retirement, his longtime rival, Tony Ferguson, has continued to pursue a competition with the former lightweight champion, regardless of whether or not that competition sees them square off inside the octagon. Leading up to his UFC 291 clash with Bobby Green on Saturday, Ferguson was asked for a prediction regarding the potential clash between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. After stating that he hopes they knock each other out, he revealed he was supposed to coach season 31 against Nurmagomedov. However, things fell through.
I was supposed to coach on The Ultimate Fighter. I can't hate on it, but I was supposed to coach on The Ultimate Fighter against Khabib. He's off on his world tour still. And I guess whatever he had happening, he didn't have enough balls to go and coach his cousin.
Should Ferguson wind up getting the win over Bobby Green on Saturday, do you think that we'll see El Cucuy mentioning Nurmagomedov in his post-fight octagon interview? Derrick Lewis opens up on recent losing streak. Heading into UFC 291, popular heavyweight Derrick Lewis is eager to return to the win column and snap his recent 3-fight skid. While speaking to media members ahead of his highly anticipated fight with Marcos Rogerio de Lima this weekend, Lewis spoke about his recent struggles, including how he blacked out and collapsed before weigh-ins for his last fight.
What's been going on is like I wait three days before weigh-ins, then start trying to cut weight. I cut like 25 pounds in like 3 days, and just not eating and just drinking water. And for sure, it's just been big adjustment. I'm already at weight right now. I don't believe I had to cut anything.
With the fight against Marcos Rogerio de Lima expected to remain on the feet, it'll be interesting to see how the adjustments Lewis mentioned will come into play. At 38 years old, there's no doubt about the power in Lewis's hands. However, based on his recent performances, the big question heading into Saturday night's fight will be whether or not his chin is still there. Sean O'Malley reacts to Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Later this year at UFC 295, welterweight champion Leon Edwards is expected to defend his title against #1 contender Colby Covington. Although the fight has yet to be formally announced by the UFC, the news of the potential bout has the fight community deep in debate over how they think things will play out. During a recent video for his YouTube channel, Sugar Sean O'Malley weighed in on the highly anticipated clash.
At MSG November 11th. That's beautiful. That could be beautiful. I'm excited to see. I rewatched recently Leon versus Kamaru 3. Their last fight. It was a fucking good fight. Leon did such a good job. I feel like it was just a little different Kamaru. But that was a sweet fight. Leon's good, dude. Colby's also really good. Obviously, that's a very high level fight.
In addition, fan favorite welterweight veteran Stephen Wonderboy Thompson also gave his thoughts on the potential bout while speaking to media members leading up to UFC 291.
If Usman couldn't hold Leon down, I don't think Colby could. I think the fight stays standing and Leon picks him apart. That's kind of what I'm seeing from the fights that I've seen these guys face Usman in.
With the fight already becoming a major talking point in the MMA community, it sounds like the ball is now in the UFC's court. And now for our breaking news story of the day. We have Sean O'Malley revealing horrible news about the UFC's future. Speculation has been happening recently about Dana White and Joe Rogan's departure together from the UFC. And Sean O'Malley thinks that once that happens, the UFC will become just like the NFL. The fighters will be censored if they don't follow strict rules, and the whole sport will go downhill. Here's what he had to say on a recent podcast.
The UFC, imagine Dana leaving and somebody coming in and like treating it like the NFL, and it's like, it's like
you'd lose a lot of your characters.
You would just get censored so much, and it's just fighting's too raw. Fighting's too gangster, dude.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan's contract says if Dana White leaves, Joe leaves. I've heard him say that quite a bit of times. Yeah, I mean, I could see that being true.
Do you agree with Sean O'Malley? Will the UFC censor its fighters when Dana White leaves? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon turned down UFC deal. The UFC and the WWE may be part of the same company, thanks to a merger under the Endeavor banner. However, if former champion Hulk Hogan and WWE founder Vince McMahon had seized the opportunity years back, the pair could have actually owned the UFC. During a recent appearance on This Past Weekend podcast, Hogan recalled the situation.
Yeah, there was an opportunity to buy it a long time ago, and Vince and I passed on it. You know, it was before the referees stopped things.
Yeah.
And they were kicking people and they were on the ground, and it just was so violent when it was brought to us. We went, that was a huge mistake.
Given that the latest estimates have the UFC being worth over $10 billion, it's safe to say that Hogan and McMahon are likely kicking themselves about the decision to pass on buying the company when it was worth far less.